Good morning, everyone. Abhisha, Sujal, Bhumika, Divya, Rajkumar, Vishal. Very good morning to everyone. Welcome back to our morning live classes. Yes, good morning, Rajveer, Ayushi, Nagratna, everyone. Very good morning. So let us start, students. Now, before I take up today's topic, let us see if you all have any questions, any doubts in any of your previous topics or chapters till date, so that I would like to first address them because that will help you consolidate your understanding and knowledge about the subject overall. So you can start with your queries first. Once we resolve them, we proceed with this new chapter. Yes, go ahead, please. Anybody having any questions, doubts? Students, no question you all have relating to any previous topic or relating to the costing concepts in general. Let us then take ahead our topic. Okay, yes, Yukta, I've unmuted you. I think I'm unable to unmute. Technical team, can you please unmute her? Nagarthana is unmuted. Can we please unmute Yukta?
Good morning, sir.
Very good morning, Yukta. Please tell me.
Sir, I have a doubt in employee cost chapter in
Okay.
which there was a technique of calculating wages, Roman premium plan.
Okay.
In that advantage, sir, I didn't understand the third point.
What it is, beta? Can you tell me? Can you just read out?
The sharing principle appeals to the employer as being equitable.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, sir, I didn't
So
understand
firstly,
this.
very good question. So students, I'll just give some brief background so that you all can also understand this question and the answer. So if you all remember, when we discussed the two premium bonus plans, both Halsey Rowan, in that premium bonus plan, what is the bonus component? Bonus component is the wages pertaining to the time saved hours. So if you have saved some time, the wages which I am paying to you for that time which you have saved is the bonus component. However, if you remember, Halsey gives you 50% and Rowan gives you something which is a very unique formula, which is a ratio time saved upon time allowed, that is standard, into actual time into time rate. Now, what is this? The basic idea is that when you have worked extra, or I'll say not extra, you have worked with a better speed because of which your standard hours is more and your actual hours is less. So you have saved some time. So let me put it in some example form. So let us say standard hours was 10. That is the work, whatever you completed today is of 10 hours as per the employer standard and speed. You have done it in the allotted shift time of 8 hours. So you have saved my 2 hours. Now, as bonus, I'll give you the wages for this. Interestingly, in Halsey, they do not give you full portion of this because they take 50%. Now, what Rowan does, Rowan uses all these figures together to find out your bonus because Rowans take the time saved upon the standard into the actual hours and then multiplied by time rate. That is okay. Now the point is that when it is that when it is giving you the bonus in this fashion, or even here, it is not giving you the complete advantage of your time saved. This is what is firstly the sharing principle. So first question was sharing. What is sharing principle? So what is sharing over here? In case of Halsey, I'm giving you only 50% of the time saved by you. So what happens of the balance 50%? The balance 50%, employer will give to the supervisor, the manager, and some part will be retained by the employer himself. Why? Because your speed, your efficiency is also dependent on all these persons' contribution. Supervisor has done his supervision, manager has made proper plans and arrangement, and employer has created proper facilities. So that is what is the sharing principle. Halsey says give 50% to them and keep 50% with employee. Now uniquely, Rowan has not given a fixed percentage. Rowan has made this mathematical formula which will change. Let us take another example. In the same day, another employee worked 8 hours, but the output that this employee achieved was of 12 hours. So this employee saved 4 hours. Now, for this employee, the formula, the working would be something like this. Correct? The formula, the working would be something like this. Now, if you observe, there is no fixed percentage that you are giving. Here the percentage is coming to 20. Here the percentage is coming to 40. Now, answering your question, what did the advantage of Rowan say? That this particular sharing is much better. Correct, Yukta? This is what it
Yes,
is
sir.
saying. Well, what is the exact word it has used? What is about this sharing the word they have used?
Equitable.
Equitable. Now, what is the meaning of equitable? Equitable means it is fair, it is just, it is good for both. Now, who are these both? One is the employer, one is the employee. Now, how this scheme is equitable? If you make such type of calculation for, let us say, 10 workers, and let us say you keep on increasing their efficiency, you will find that as the efficiency is increasing, this percentage, like here it was coming 20, here it is coming 40, will go on increasing up to a certain stage. Correct? Now, the best part is that since the percentage is increasing, it means the employee is getting higher wages because he will be given higher share in the bonus. So that way it is equitable, it is fair, it is just for the employee. However, after a certain limit, this percentage which is increasing will increase, but at a very slow pace. Like here you saw it increased directly by 20%. After that, when the employee is increasing his efficiency, the percentage will be increasing but by 1%, by 0.5%, and so on. Now, where the employee has achieved a certain level of efficiency, after that, the same formula is giving higher wages to the employee, but at a very slow pace. Means the efficiency, this particular percentage of share in bonus is increasing, but at a slower pace. That is where it becomes fair and just for the employer also. So this is such a plan that it is neither from the side of employer nor from the side of employee. Is this clear, Yukta?
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, beta. Yes, students. Anybody else? So difference between overtime and production bonus. Okay. So Rajveer is asking, sir, what is the difference between overtime and production bonus? See, but this is the example which we were discussing right now in Yukta's question. Is example of production bonus. What is production bonus? The more you are producing, then the standard which is set. So I have to reward you for that, for your extra production or your better speed. That is what is called as the production bonus. Correct? So you are getting extra, but here you are getting extra because in the same time, let us say your shift is of 8 hours, you have produced more. Yukta has produced more. Somebody else has produced more as compared to the other workers who are either at efficiency or below efficiency. Now, where your output is more, your efficiency is more, and you are getting extra wages, that is what is production bonus. As against this, when you are working extra hours over and above the time which is fixed, like in our example, 8 hours is the daily shift hours, which we call as the normal working time, where you have worked beyond 8 hours, correct? Then the extra hours that you have worked is what is called as overtime. Again, you are paid extra, but here the extra payment is not for your extra efficiency. Here the extra payment is because I said that my normal shift is of 8 hours. However, I had some extra workload, so I requested that you stay back more for 2 hours. You did that. So when I pay you extra for your working extra beyond the normal time or even coming on some holiday, that is what is overtime. I hope this is clear. Tanvi, if you allow me, I would like to take the example maybe at a later part so that we do not breach into the timing of our this topic. But yes, definitely I'll keep this in mind and I will explain you or will go to that particular illustration. Gurmeet is asking, sir, which method is generally used in factories? See, beta, today, broadly, there are two types of industries. One is piece and one is time. Now, what is piece industry? There are certain industries like in China where the product is standardized. You have to just replicate it, and that product does not require much skill. It is just a mechanical process. So at that time, they give you production, or sorry, not production, the wages on the basis of units you have produced. Like even in our country, if you go to a pot making example, so the people who are making pots over there, the pots per pot, they are paid some amount. So that is where the wages is paid on piece basis. But this is very less because giving on piece basis comes with so many challenges. But wherever such type of production is there, like the production does not requires much skill and the employer wants that you make maximum output. So as an incentive, he says, I'll make payment on piece basis so that you make it fast. And since the production product does not require much skill, it is just replicating the same process. The employer is also not having a risk that if you do not work properly or in the haste, if you do not make it in the proper manner, the product may get damaged because there is nothing technical, nothing very skilled required. So in such cases, it is piece basis, but which is very less. Remaining everywhere, it is time basis. Now within time basis, wherever the work can be calculated, how much you have worked, they bring incentives. But this incentive may not be necessarily by the Halse-Rowan plan only. Halse-Rowan is what we are being taught. So in production industries, Halse-Rowan may be used. But remember one thing, Gurmeet Beta, whatever such plans you study, not only in this topic, every topic, many times these are the plans which are the one which are most common, or let us say during the industrial revolution period when the industrial revolution started. Also at that time, all these Henry Fayol, FW Table or Taylor, all these people started coming into picture. They started writing books and all. We were taught all these plans since then. However, practically, it is not necessary that these same plans or the same plans in the same manner would be used, because practically every business, every employer, every work condition is different. So just to give you an example, that example means just to give you a feel how practically things happen. Whatever we are studying here is just to make a conceptual clarity. in real life, when you'll go, you'll find that the same thing may be used, but with lot of variation. So it may not be exactly Halsey, it may not be exactly Rowan, it may be something different which you do not study in any books. Fine, beta? So just remember, students, that in many places, the techniques, such plans that you are studying may not be found exactly as it is in the real world. Yes, few industries may be following it, but many industries are following with modifications which suits their business, which suits their working culture. Yes, students, any further questions? Manipreet, but I do not have written answers for all the questions. What I can do, Max, is if anybody of you is solving this, you can share it with me. I'll just check, and that will be easy for me. I'll check and upload the final answer sheet so that everybody else can refer. So anybody of you can take up that. You can solve the questions. You can send the solutions, the solved ones properly. You can take a proper scanning and then send it. I'll check it and I'll put it that checked version over there. So that would be easy because I keep on revising the content every time I try to take it out from different books. So I may not be having the ready answers, but yes, I can provide them in this fashion. Okay, students, any further questions? Let us for 2 more minutes. Tanvi, maybe in next class, if you can upload here, I will download it, and that will I'll get the answers. Or if you can check if they can share my mail ID, you can share it there. Anyways, here also if you upload, I'll download it from here in the next class, or you can check with viewers. If my mail ID can be provided, you can send me there. I will do the checking and I'll revert back. Okay. And just close the sheet for a minute so that these writings are not there because they're not pertaining to this chapter. Fine. So students, we start with a very important and according to me, a very, very special topic in costing. Why do I say this is special? Because the real costing effort or the real costing challenge is in this topic. And that is why I find this topic very interesting at the conceptual level. Also, students find this topic very interesting at their examination level because this topic, like in fact other topics also, you will find that once you have understood the concept and the format, you will find that many things in this chapter, in this subject of costing and also in subject of FM is standardized. You have the same format workings, you have the same type of calculations, the formulae, you have to just replicate. The only challenge which I believe you all face as students in the subject of costing is the questions that are given. See, the answers are not that difficult. Answers are not difficult because the same format is there. Like cost sheet, the format will remain same. Overheads, what we are going to study, format will remain same. Material, EOQ, the further workings, the formula, the working format will same. So you'll find that when you see the solution, you will say, "Arey yaar, ye to mere ko aata tha." But the challenge is when you read the question, identifying what the question is saying, identifying which formula, which format, or which approach to be used is the main challenge. And that is not because of the subject per se. That is firstly because of the language in which these questions are drafted. That is what I feel. As a student, I used to have that challenge in understanding the language. Again, the language, when I say language, it does not mean it is because of English. It is because of the manner, the wordings, how the question is drafted purposefully. Some data pertaining to EOQ, AR would be given in the first para. Then after few unnecessary lines, the next data would be given somewhere in between. That is the cost per order. Further, some lines which is relating to some other working would be given. Then another data carrying cost is given. So because of the manner in which the questions are designed, at least as a student, I used to find it difficult to understand the question. So it was not because of the English language as per se, it was because of how the questions were framed. First. And second, you require analytical skills. This is, in fact, what our institute wants to develop, because this is what is the need of the industry when you go there as a professional, that they want to develop this analytical ability, that when something is presented in front of you as a question, as a, when you are in industry or when you are in your profession, you work as a consultant. So when some situation comes, you should be able to analyze it from different perspective and then identify and provide the correct and the best possible solution. So these two, according to me, are the main reasons where I, as a student, used to find problem while handling this subject. Now, then coming to the question next, obviously, which you will have in mind, sir, then how did you overcome? Obviously, beta, it is overcome only by one thing, by solving more and more sums. Firstly, what I used to do, until unless I am very thorough with the format, कि इसका आंसर ऐसे ही होता है, इसका वर्किंग यही होता है, I will do what? I will practice more same type of sums, so that firstly my hand and my mind gets acquainted and fixed with the manner of solving. So first I specialize in that type of format and the answering. Once I have found comfort and once I have found that you can say control and efficiency, then I go to the variety of questions. When I say variety, variety does not necessarily mean you will have some different answer. As I said, answers will not go beyond the concepts, the formula, the formats. But as I said, different ways of asking questions, or in 10 different questions, one of the subparts will be having a different type of question that is asked, which you may not have solved in any previous 10 or 12 sums. So that is where I used to go for variety. But having said this, it all comes with the first big challenge, that is time. So I always recommend students, you should do one thing. You have 6 papers. Please allot equal time to all initially. Try to first come to that level of 60% in every subject. What is 60%? That you will be at least able to secure 50 plus marks. You should be able to answer at least 75% of the paper. First reach that. This is I call as the 60% mark. And then once you are comfortably at this 60% mark, where you will be able to solve 75% of the sums, you will be confident that you'll be getting 50 plus marks. Then you work for the remaining 40%. The remaining 40% is going for variety. The remaining 40% is trying to excel in that subject. But this remaining 40% may be different for different students. I may prefer this for income tax, for costing, maybe for accounts. Somebody may prefer this for law, for FM. So that may differ. And then depending upon the time available, you can select 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 subjects to specialize. So this also helps you in securing better overall total marks in the exams. Plus, maybe if you are able to get a good grip of the concepts and you understand those subjects, then this may also become your future subject for practice. So keep this in mind. I always follow this 60-40 approach. First 60 is securing your papers, securing your marks, securing your exams. And that you have to do equally for all subjects. Allocate proper time. I will not say equal time, because for reaching that 60% mark, you may require different time for different subjects, depending upon how comfortable you are with the concepts, with the format of that subject. Like some may be theory, some may be practical. You may require to devote different time to different subjects. So that is fine. Identify that. Accordingly, plan your timings. Every week, you have to by default study all subjects. When I say every week you have to study, means our classes are there for all subjects. But at your end, whatever revision, whatever practice you are doing, that has to be done for every subject, so that you are in line with what is going on in our classes. And then if during the same week you have extra time, start picking up 1 or 2 subjects where you will give that extra time. Which should be those subjects? Those subjects should be the one where you are lacking, so that you are at par. Still, if you don't get time and some subjects are lacking, just keep on marking them that, okay, these are lacking. In next week, give them first priority, you complete their lacking. So ensure that you are not lacking in any of the subjects by the time our classes are going on. Once our classes are concluded and once you start self-study, then this remaining 40% role comes. Because By the time our classes are going, and if you are regular, if you are matching us and also doing extra practice, you will cross the 60% mark. Not only reach, you will cross the 60% mark, means you'll ensure you are passing. But then comes the most important part, that is excelling. That when you are self-studying after the end of our classes before your exams, that is where you have to take that special effort. Fine, students. So this should be your basic study plan. Now, coming to this subject, why I personally like this subject more? Because this subject is the real challenge of costing, and that is where this becomes important also in your profession. Let us say tomorrow you are taking up costing as your specialization subject and excelling in costing as a professional. So this chapter, or the concepts rather, are very useful in understanding the overall costing philosophy. Now, overheads. If you understand and remember, what are overheads? We discussed that cost is made up of three broad components. Also, let me tell you. Now, see, even if you're attending today's class as the first class, don't worry, students. Whatever I'm explaining is basics. I'm linking the basics to the present part. Now, when you're doing costing, we have understood one thing now, that cost means the expenses. The only thing is that you should be able to link the expense with your product. So let us say I'm making this product A. This is my product X. This is my job 117. So I'm making three different things in my factory. I need to charge expenses to each of these products so that I find out their total value or their total cost. Now, when I say I need to charge means what? I know all my expenses. I need to just allocate out of this total of purchase, how much will be for this, how much will be for this, how much will be for this. I need to identify and I need to allocate. Allocate means utna amount uske naam pe dal diya. So I will put that much amount in this each product's cost sheet. Similarly, I have another direct wages. Same thing I will do. I will identify out of the total direct wages, how much direct wages is for A, for X, for 117. I will put it in the cost sheet of these products. This is what is charging. So what is charging? Out of total cost, you have to allocate the expense which is related to that product and put it in that cost sheet. So once you put all these costs in the cost sheet of a particular product, you get the total cost. Once you get the total cost, you can find out the per unit cost. You can fix the price. In future, you can use this for cost control, for cost reduction, for decision making. This is what is the whole subject of cost accounting says. Now, from where do we get the expenses? Simple answer. Our trading and P&L of accounts, when I'm saying account, I'm talking about financial accounting, is giving you a simple idea of what are the different expenses of your business. So firstly, you'll get your expenses list from there. What you will not get from here, and you have to add from your side, is the other expense list, which we call as notional. These are all out of pocket. That is where you have paid something out of your pocket. There is one notional expense over here, that is depreciation, which you're not paying out of pocket, but on assumption basis, we are considering it in our P&L. Similarly, there are other, or there may be other notional expenses, like where as an owner, I am myself working in my business, my labor cost, which I'm not paying to myself, but that should also be considered. So all these are the notional expenses where you are not actually making payment, but they are incurred. They are required for doing that work. So you should take a price, take a value for that also. That is the notional expenses. Now, one is this expense list, which you are getting from your trading P&L. Another that you identify as your notional expenses. So once you get this expense list, you start charging to your products. And after charging, you get the total expense for this product, that is product A, that becomes the total cost. Similarly, you'll get for product X, that becomes the total cost. You'll get for job 117, you'll get the total cost. And in this manner, you do costing for all the products. Fine, student? Now, when we are doing this in accounts, we have around hundreds of expense items. So there are the list of expense may run into 100. However, our subject of costing and cost accounting says that we have broadly three categories of cost. One is the material cost, the labor cost, and the remaining are expenses, which I say expenses on resources. So if I take you to the trading P&L, materials are mainly what you find in purchases. Certain things you may find in P&L where you have written the material as oil and grease. All these are material. Labor you find as direct wages, indirect wages, salary, director remuneration. So all these human element expenses are labor, and then remaining expenses which are for some or the other resource, like for your space you have rent or depreciation. For your machine again you may have rent or depreciation. Then for all these assets you will have repairs and maintenance. Then you have canteen, this is another facility. Then you may have your all these expenses like printing and stationery, legal charges. All these expenses are for some or the other resource which we call as expense. So broadly costing says instead of these 100 items we have broadly three categories of all these expenses. Now these are further divided into direct, indirect, direct, indirect. So broadly you get six categories: direct material, indirect material, direct labor, indirect labor, direct expense, indirect expense. Correct? Now, when you are preparing this cost sheet broad format is you first take all direct items of cost, total becomes prime cost. Now it is easy to identify and charge these three costs because they are direct. In fact, because it is easy to charge them, to identify them, that is why, in fact, they are called as direct, because you can directly charge. You don't require much specialized working. If you remember in my previous lecture, I had explained you require two things for charging: quantity, price. Quantity, price. Price means the charging price, which we learn how to calculate. We studied this in material, we studied this in labor, now we'll study this in overheads. And the quantity of that particular element which you have consumed in your product. Like for material, the quantity will be the kgs, the liters of material you have consumed in that product. For labor, it will be the labor hours that you have used for making that product. Direct expense like royalty is generally linked with the quantity of output. So you find out the physical quantity of that cost which you have consumed in your product, which you have used in your product, and you multiply it by the charging price, you get these costs. And it is not very easy, but it is conveniently, comfortably possible to identify these costs, and that is why they are called as direct. But these costs may be very few in number. Majority of your costs are indirect. And the biggest challenge in indirect cost is it is difficult to identify. What is difficult to identify? How much of that expense is required for that product. And since it is difficult to identify how much of that expense is required for that product, that is why we call them as indirect. And hence we have three indirect costs: indirect material, indirect labor, indirect expense. And then collectively, these are called as overheads. I hope you are comfortably clear with this, because this is the very core basics of costing, which we discussed in first topic. I repeat it over here because this chapter will give you the real feel. And by now you have studied something in material, something in labor. So now you can correlate with what we are discussing. So when we are doing costing, we first identify these costs which are direct. We easily charge them because, see, giving you a practical example, I gave the simplest example in my first lecture was of dinner. Now for dinner, you can identify how much of rice I consume, how much of dal I consume, how much of a particular other element like some wheat flour, some oil that was consumed in that dinner. I can identify the quantity. Once I can identify it, it means that is direct material. Similarly, if I can calculate how much of cooking time was required, which is easy. 1.5 hour or 2 hours is the cooking time. So that much hours of labor, cooking labor, is your direct labor. So you can easily, conveniently identify and record, and this can be then used for preparing the cost sheet, that is charging that expense to that product. So these are direct costs. Your main challenge is finding out this charging price, which, if you remember, I had given you that mother formula in the previous chapter of labor. When we started labor, I explained that that mother formula is the core formula of costing, and that is why I call it as the mother formula, because that formula used in every chapter wherever you want to find out the per unit cost or price. So using that mother formula, we calculated charging price of material, charging price of labor, and today, using the same mother formula, we'll understand the charging price of overheads. Fine. Now, once you are clear with the charging of direct cost, now why I repeated all this, even though we did this in the first chapter, for two reasons. First chapter, you are very new to the subject. You may not have actually felt that particular concept to that extent, though with the dinner example, it was easy. But still, today you have already studied material labor. So now you are slightly something moved ahead in this subject. Plus, when I'm explaining you overheads, now you'll get the real difference between what is this special challenge which I'm talking about charging overheads, and why overheads are overheads, why they are called as indirect, why they are called as overheads. Yes, Yukta Beda, this is the mother formula. I'm just copy pasting what Yukta has written so that everybody gets this mother formula if by chance you have forgotten. This is the mother formula of costing for finding out any charging price, for finding out any per unit cost. This is the formula that is used. Yes, thank you, Yukta. Now, understand the students. What is the real challenge in overheads? The real challenge is my overheads are expenses like rent, depreciation. Now, what is my real challenge? When I want to charge them to my products, and I want to charge them because without charging, I will not be able to do costing. I will not be able to find out total cost and price. When I want to charge overheads, again the same format is required. What? Quantity into price, quantity into price, quantity into price. What is this quantity? For material, it was the quantity of raw material that I'm using, right? Like in case of rice, how much kgs of or grams of rice, how much kgs or grams of dal, how much kg of wheat flour. Then in case of something like oil, how much liters of oil I consume. This is the quantity, and since you can identify, you can measure how much I have used, that is why these are direct material. Similarly, for labor, you can count the time, you can clock the time, which is called as time booking. That okay, mommy started the dinner preparation work at, let us say, 6:30, it and ended at 8. So 1.5 hours is the cooking time I recorded. It is what we studied as time booking. So 1.5 hours you could identify, you could measure, so that is direct labor. But now coming to all other expense like rent, depreciation, printing stationery, legal charges, audit fees, whatever you can remember in your P&L statement. The challenge is why they are called as indirect and overheads, because you cannot identify this. How much of rent is consumed in my yesterday's dinner? You cannot measure that. You have no quantity to measure. First, understand what you have to measure. You have to measure the quantity that you have consumed. Like for material, you measured the quantity of wheat, rice, oil, etc. For labor, you measured the hours. Similarly, what is the quantity by which you will measure how much of rent is consumed, how much of depreciation is consumed, how much of your legal charges are consumed? All these expenses you are paying in your business, but how to charge them is difficult because you do not have a quantity of these. Please understand this. If you are understanding this point, you are getting the real feel of costing subject, not overheads. I'm saying costing subject. So what is so special in overheads charging or costing overheads is that all these expenses which becomes your overheads, you do not have the measure ki how much of this expense is used for my product. I know that there is usage of this because without the space, I cannot do production. Without the machine, I cannot do the production. But how much of space, how much of machine, how much of, let us say, supervisor's time, manager's time, director's time I'm using in yesterday's dinner is not possible to be identified. So this is the challenge that overheads do not have a quantity of its own. They are all expenses. How will you measure how much? I can find out the charging price because the mother formula which Yukta had given and I have posted there. This is standard and you can use it even for overheads. But the problem is, even in the mother formula, you see the denominator. In the denominator of the mother formula for finding out this charging price, I need the quantity. What is that quantity? Answer is there is no quantity for rent, for depreciation, for all these indirect cost. May it be indirect material, may it be indirect labor, or may it be indirect expenses or resources. You don't have any quantity or measure how much is used in the product. That is where the challenge of overheads costing comes. Now, this is the challenge. Most important point is what is the importance? Why we are worrying so much of overhead? Because if you see in today's scenario, your cost, you just see trading P&L. See why I'm using the reference of trading P&L because you are most comfortable with trading P&L. You'll find only two major items which will be falling in, or let us say three major items out of the total trading P&L list, which will be falling in direct. One is the purchases, which will become direct material. One is the direct wages, which will become here direct labor. And if you have direct expense over there, many times if you remember, you have written direct expense also in your trading account, that will come here. But other than these expenses in your trading and P&L account, all other expenses are indirect. And you can see that it is 50% or maybe more than 50% of the total expense. So this much is the quantum of overheads today. And today, as we are moving more towards mechanized production, towards more of this automated production, your overheads are increasing because that much high value machines you are using, that much sophisticated processes you are using. If you go to industries today are high tech. You spend a lot of amount on the industry structure itself, on the entire infrastructure of the industry itself. Plus, today, if you see, our big companies, big brands are spending high, exponentially high amount on branding and marketing. Again, all these branding and marketing costs will come and sit in overheads only. So if you observe in today's scenario, actually also one very big component is research. Today, all businesses, whoever wants to grow, have to come up with new products, have to come up with new ideas so that they get extra advantage in the market. And again, they spend huge amount on research, huge amount on experimentation, on development of a new product or a new technique, whatever. Please understand this. All this is adding to overheads. And now added to that, a very interesting cost item is expenses on technology. All technology, softwares, AI tools, experts who are going to run these softwares, you are spending huge amount on the technology front because that has now become integral for the business. Now, all these costs, which is overheads, are now increasing as a proportion. So today, your actual, let us say you're buying chips, actual tomato, sorry, not tomato, the potato, etc., which you are using for the chip, which is the direct cost, may hardly be 10% or 15% or maximum 20% of the total cost. Remaining 80% is all these things: R&D cost, the marketing cost, the other manufacturing facility cost. The point is that when your overheads proportion is such huge in your total expense, in your total cost, obviously charging these overheads now becomes very critical. Because if you do not charge it, or if you are not charging it properly, that will be a disaster for the business, because your cost wrong, your pricing wrong, everything goes wrong. Your business may turn into losses. That is the importance of this subject. And that is the importance of this chapter. Now, since the overhead component is increasing, the challenge is, how will I charge? Because I do not know the quantity. This is now replaced by the word, I do not know the basis how I should charge. So instead of using the word quantity, now I'm using the word base. So actually for charging cost, you need two things. The basis on which you will charge, which is generally the quantity. Now for direct material, direct labor, direct expense, the base is present. It is the material quantity, it is the labor hour. And in case of direct expense, it is generally the final product quantity. So the base for the direct cost is available. But indirect cost is indirect because there is no base. Again, I'll ask the same question. On what basis you will charge rent? You tell me. Let us say, don't just listen to me. Start processing your mind. How will you charge rent to yesterday's dinner? Let us say you are paying rent for your house. You need to charge that cost. You are paying light bill of your house. Let us say all the kitchen equipments you are using, you are having some depreciation of that. All these you need to charge. How will you charge? Difficult. Rice, dal, you charge easily because you can measure the base. What is the base? The quantity of dal rice. You could even charge the labor cost because you could measure the hours of mummy's cooking effort. But what about overheads? That is where this chapter, this topic gains relevance. Now, again, the same mother formula for finding out the charging price. What is the formula? How do you find out this charging price? Same formula, mother formula. Numerator, total cost. Denominator, quantity, which is obviously now called as the base. But the basic challenge is, what is this base for overheads? The answer is, you have to take a base, or I will change my sentence, sorry. You have to relate one of the base which you already have for the other costs, like material quantity you can measure, labor hours you can measure. If let us say my production is mechanized, so instead of labor hours, you'll have machine hours you can measure. You can measure the quantity of products or output. The same base we use here. So since overheads do not have its own quantity, we use one of these quantities which we already have, which we have already calculated and measured, as the base for overheads. It means for finding out the charging price of overheads, for charging the overheads to your products and finding out the overheads cost of each product, we use the basis of other cost. So now I'll give you the perfect sentence. Overheads are charged on the basis of the other direct elements of cost. Because you have already charged them, you already have the basis for them, you use the same for charging overheads. This one sentence is holding a great value in the entire costing subject. Forget about this chapter. The more you understand this, the more you get closer to this sentence. I repeat this sentence. Overhead is charged on the basis of other cost. So whatever basis you are using in other cost, you'll use those same basis. Correct? How we will use that? That we will study in the working part. See, working of overheads is the most simplest thing I believe, because it is very mechanical. It is repeating the same thing again and again. It is all calculator work. Right? I'll answer a few questions. So Vishal Chaudhary is asking, sir, like direct material, labor, and expense. Yes. So if you're asking me the base, so this is what I just explained. For overheads, the base, which is the denominator with which we divide to find out our charging price, will be the base of material or of labor or of direct expense. And what are these bases? Either the material quantity, which you can measure, or you can take even the material cost, because that you already have. So you can take the direct material quantity or direct material cost as the base. You can take the direct labor quantity, which is the direct labor hours, or the direct labor cost. You can take the direct expense quantity, which is the quantity of product. You can take these bases. Rohan is asking, sir, assume estimated basis based on own judgment with the help of past experience. Yes, beta. Remember, Rohan and everyone, if you remember in my first lecture itself, I have said that costing is on estimated basis. So here also you'll find the word estimated overheads upon estimated base because you have to do this at the start. So whatever figures we are taking in the numerator also, which is of overheads cost, and in the denominator of the basis, everything is based on estimates. And while selecting the base, as I said now, overheads do not have its own quantity or base. So we are going to take something of material or of labor. That which one to take, because you have so many options, which one to take will be your judgment. And that is why this chapter is so important in costing. And this is the most challenging chapter because even though today we will be studying all the calculations formula, you'll find that कि अरे ये तो सर इतना easy है. Why easy है? क्योंकि सब में वो दिया है कि कॉस्ट इतना है, आपको बेस लेबर आवर्स लेना है, आप ले लो. एक बार आपको मालूम पड़ गया तो कैलकुलेटर हो गया ना, न्यूमरेटर डिनोमिनेटर डिवाइड, यू गेट द प्राइस एंड देन यू यूज दैट प्राइस फॉर चार्जिंग. बट इन रियल वर्ल्ड, इन एक्चुअल कॉस्टिंग, this base you have to identify, you have to select. I'll use the word select on the basis of judgment. And as I say, since you have multiple options now to select anything, आप कोई भी ले सकते हो क्योंकि ओवरहेड्स का खुद का कोई क्वांटिटी नहीं है. तो आप मटेरियल का ले लो, लेबर का ले लो, मशीन आवर्स ले लो. बट सिंस यू हैव ऑप्शन नाउ, selecting the option will be the most crucial part. If you make the wrong choice, your costing will go wrong and everything will go wrong, right? Anup Kumar is asking, sir, for direct labor, indirect labor, same set of information is available with the company. Man days work, paid days, salary paid, etc. Then why direct labor is considered as labor cost and indirect labor is considered as overheads? Good question, Anup Kumar. Allow me some time. When we'll go to the working, I'll come back and answer your question. Ki why there is a difference between direct labor and indirect labor. Fine. Anubhav is saying, sir, for rent, can't we take the days as the base with a month? Good question. Good point, Anubhav. See, I am not saying you cannot take any base or you don't have any base. Now, see, Anubhav is giving a very good answer from his Anubhav, that is from his understanding of the subject, which is correct. That for rent, can't we take the basis as days? You can take, but there are 2, 3 challenges. So let us say my rent is for a month, which is of 30 days. So you pay rent for 30 days, but you are working for 25 days. 4, 5 days is a weekly off. No problem. You can take in the numerator total rent divided by the working days. Now what you'll get rent per working day. Now what will happen? It is per working day, but during that day you have done so many production. In the same factory, you have done so many productions. Now when I'm saying so many productions means what? See, I have multiple machines. On different machines, different products are getting produced. Interestingly, some product may be getting produced in 3 to 4 days. Some product may be getting produced in 1 day. Some product may be getting produced in 5 hours. Some may be half hour. Some may be 1 hour, 2 hour. So getting the rent cost per day is also not sufficient because that you will get the rent cost for the whole factory. And in that factory, in 1 day, multiple products are produced depending upon number of machines, number of workers you have. And also different products may have different timelines for production. So what you are saying, Anubhav, is perfectly right. Now we are getting closer. So I am taking Anubhav's example. For rent, you can take days. I'm not saying no. But again, it will not be giving you the final answer because I gave you the challenge. Now, interestingly, Anubhav, even if I say for rent, I will take days. So for the timing, I agree. I remove this complication that different products have different days. Some may take half days, some may take 4 days. We remove that. But still your answer will not be this suggestion will not be giving me perfect answer. One reason, as I said, during 1 day, multiple products would be produced. 2, even if this solves my problem for rent, what for other costs? I have so many other costs. For every cost, now remember and understand this point, everyone. Like Anubhav said that for rent you can take days. If I start doing this, then for every cost, there will be some different base. Like for rent, it would be days. For something, it would be months. For something, it would be hours. For something, it would be something else. Like for printing stationery, what would be the base? For legal charges, what would be the base? For certain things, you may not find even a base. That is where Anubhav and everybody, I need to select a base. Select means what? There is no base for them. One or two, you may find some base, but that will also not give me the perfect answer. So what I do is I take these cost or their relevant data as the base so that I can charge all the overheads. Now, when I'm saying all the overhead means all this huge list of expense which is there in my trading and P&L, which is not direct. I'll remove the direct first. Remaining entire trading P&L list is indirect. So this entire indirect, which runs into hundreds of items of expense, I will club all of them in the numerator. This will be my numerator, adding up all these indirect costs. And in the denominator, I will select out of all the bases available, I'll select that base which I feel is appropriate for all the cost. I hope now you all are getting the feel. So I hope students, with all this discussion, now you are getting to realize where we are heading to. What we will be doing in overheads is, in my trading P&L, I will remove out of this trading P&L all the direct elements, which would be, as I said, very few purchases, direct wages, that's it. Remaining everything which is indirect, I will add up all of them. That will make my overheads. And then I will select a base. I'm using purposefully the word select because that is the most appropriate word. How I will select? I will take one of these costs. Now, this total multiplication is the cost. Either I'll take material cost, labor cost as the base, or I will take their elements, like their basis I can take here. So I have so many options because anyways, there is no base of overhead. So I'll take some other cost or their relevant basis as the base here. And then I will divide overheads by that base so that I will get my overhead cost. Let us say it is coming rupees 20 per labor hour. Why? Because in the denominator, I've taken labor as the base. So I will get to know when I get this 20 per hour, what this 20 will represent, that behind 1 hour of my working, 1 hour when labor works, let us say it may be machine hours also if I'm working on machine. Let us say if I take the machine hours as the base, I'm getting rupees 12 per machine hour as the overheads. So what this represents, that behind every 1 hour of my working, I'm spending rupees 12 for rent, for electricity, for depreciation of machine, depreciation of building, depreciation of all the assets. Similarly, I'm spending for printing stationery, for legal charges, for canteen. I've taken all the cost, divided it by my total working hours, which may be labor hours, machine hours, as the case may be, and I will get the per hour overheads cost. Now, when I have to charge these overheads, I have got this per hour cost, which is rupees, let us say 12. I will multiply it by the base. Base means the same thing. Here you have taken total machine hours of the company for all products during the year. So that gave you per hour. Now out of this, I'll take the machine hours which I will be requiring for one product, which I'm doing costing of. Machine hours of that product multiply by 12. So by doing this, what I have done, I have charged some portion of rent, some portion of depreciation of building, of machine, of other assets, some portion of repair maintenance, some portion of insurance, some portion of printing stationery, some portion of canteen and all. So this is how overheads are charged. Students, I've tried to give you the feel of this topic. And this is the most crucial thing when it comes to understanding. Now, once I switch to solving, you'll find here solving to kitna easy hai, sir. I know that it is easy, but until unless you understand this, whatever you will do will be mechanical, and that will get flopped whenever you get a conceptual sum, or in real life if you take up this subject as your core subject of profession. Any questions, students? before I go to my practical aspect. No? Till now, I have answered everything from the chat except for Anup Kumar's question, difference between direct and indirect labor. Okay. So, this is your trading P&L account. 2 or 3 items which are direct material like purchases, direct wages, and if by chance you have direct expenses, you'll leave them. Other all expenses from your trading P&L account, hundreds of those, you will bring them together. These may be indirect material like oil, grease, all these things we purchase. These may be indirect labor like indirect wages, salaries, directors' remuneration, everything. And these may be all indirect expenses on your facilities like depreciation, repair, maintenance, printing stationery, insurance. All these are expenses on resources. You club them and this will be called as overheads. Now we saw for charging overheads, I have to simply do what? I have to find out this total overheads divided by a base. I will get the charging rate, whatever rupees something per hour per unit. But I do not charge it so easily. Why? Because these overheads, now see, we are expanding whatever we discussed till now. Now these overheads which I have got represents all cost. It may be of factory related overheads also, administration related overheads also, and selling related overheads also. Like in this example, when I'm taking indirect wages, it is of factory only. When I'm taking the indirect material like oil, grease, it is of factory only. But when I'm taking printing stationery, depreciation of office computers, depreciation of office building, repair maintenance of some office equipment, those expenses are pertaining to administration. When I'm taking expenses of diesel for running my delivery van or delivery van driver salary or my salesman salary, those expenses which are overheads are pertaining to sales function. Now, if I simply take a base over here for the total overheads, I may not be doing justice to costing because these overheads have different functions. And for different functions, different bases may be correct. Like here, if I take labor hours as the base, which I was suggesting, this labor hours is of production. If I divide it here, it will be used for administration expense also as the base, for selling expense also as the base, which may not be correct. So immediately I will not do, I will not start costing labor immediately. This total overheads, which I have got over here, I will reclassify it on the basis of function into production relating overheads, admin relating overheads, selling and distribution relating overheads. And that can be identified from here. Indirect wages. Wages are always what we refer to as paid to workers who are in factory. So indirect wages will come here. Again, from here you get indirect material. Indirect material is what? It is the oil grease which is used for machine. It will also come here. Now some expense from here is like advertising. It will come here. So what I do is I now classify the overheads according to the functions where these expenses are being used. And then I get 3 different types of overheads, which you see even in cost sheet. So in cost sheet, you have firstly the 3 direct costs, direct material, direct labor, direct expense. And then you charge the 3 overheads, which is production, administration, selling, because I want to do more precise charging. And when I'm going to charge them, if I do not do it in this manner function wise, I may not get the appropriate charging rate because the base which I'm going to use. Now, I hope you all understand what I mean by base. It will be either relating to production, it will be relating to administration. So I cannot use the same base for all. Further, why I do this classification? One is for better charging so that I get the proper base for everyone. Plus, this is done also so that I can control these overheads. See, costing's purpose is not only costing, that is charging. The purpose of costing is also controlling costs, reducing costs, taking decisions. This is what is given in the theory of first chapter. There are 5 purposes of costing and cost accounting. First 2 are finding out cost, fixing price. But the remaining 3 are cost control, cost reduction, decision making, etc., etc. For this bifurcation will be helpful. So this bifurcation is helpful for both. It is helpful for costing also. It is helpful for the other functions of cost accounting, that is controlling, cost reduction, decision making, etc. Now, how do we do this bifurcation? As I said, you know the list of expenses. You have to simply categorize depending upon where the expenses are incurred. But how this is done? So let us go to some part of cost accounting. Now, as you know, in your financial accounting, one is the ledger that you prepare, and the other are the subsidiary books that you prepare. Now, this is what you do in your financial accounting. Same thing in cost accounting. See, cost accounting is also a separate set of books. We will study that in detail in the cost accounting chapter. Ledger over here is what we call as the cost ledger. And the subsidiary books over here is, one is the stores ledger, which you studied in material chapter. That is the FIFO-LIFO sums. What you are solving the FIFO-LIFO sums are the stores ledger. Then you have the labor register. This is nowhere taught in our module, but it is relating to all the timekeeping data, from where you get the timekeeping, from where you get the labor details, like how much time everyone worked, how much is their provident fund, all those details you get from the labor register. Though we are not taught this, I'm just giving you an overview. And then you have this overheads register. So now, firstly, I'll explain you the cost accounting part of this, and then we will go to charging. So this overheads register is now what I'm going to explain. Hello, Anand. So you have this overheads register. Now, how does this overheads register look like? So first column will be particulars. Second column will be expenses total. So I will say, okay, amount. Then you have the third column, basis of apportionment. Then you have production overheads, administration overheads. So this is roughly how your subsidiary book called as overheads register will look like. Now in this particular, what you will do, you will copy the list of these expenses by only taking the indirect expenses here. So all the indirect expenses that you have in your trading P&L, you will copy it here. Again, from the same trading P&L, you can get the amounts. The only difference is we take the estimated amount because we are doing it at the start of the year. So understand this, students. Practically right now, when we are in March, we are preparing our budgets and estimates for the next year. Same budgets and estimates which are prepared for the next year are the figures which are taken over here in costing to find out the charging price of everything. So here I take the next year's budgeted expense, correct? Now, as I was just explaining here, as you can see, once I get the list of my expenses from my trading P&L, I start allocating it into production overheads, administration overheads, selling and distribution overheads. That is what I'm doing here in this register or in this format. So let us say I know indirect material is for what production overheads, I'll write it. The amount which I'm having here, I'll write it here. I'm having indirect labor. I know the amount. Again, I'll write it here because indirect labor or wages is again relating to what you are saying, the workers' wages who are indirect. Then when I have salary, now remember students, in P&L, the salary which you have is also for some people working in factory, some people working in office, other majority people working in office, and some people working in the sales department. Like you have salary of factory manager also, factory supervisor also in salary. You have salary of all your accounts team, all your planning department people, and you also have your director's remuneration. And then you also have the salary of sales staff, etc. Now this salary has to be divided between the three, for which you need some ratio. which may be number of workers, etc., whatever it is. This is what is called as basis of apportionment. So basis of apportionment is the ratio which you will be using to divide the cost if it is applicable to multiple of these categories. Then let us say you have advertisement, you will write it only here. You have electricity. Again, it is a common cost for the whole business because you have single meter. You have to divide it using some ratio. So in this overheads register, which is one of the subsidiary books, you will do this bifurcation. So now finally, you will get three figures from here. First figure is of production overheads, administration overheads. Correct? Now, again, something relating to cost accounting so that this concept of overheads related cost accounting will be thoroughly clear. Now I'm talking about the cost ledger. Like this was one of the subsidiary books overheads register. In the cost ledger where I'm preparing ledger accounts, I will have this production overheads control account. I will have administration overheads. I will have selling distribution overheads. So, like your financial accounting, one you have the subsidiary book and the other you have the ledger account, which is in the ledger. Now, understand one thing, students. Into these three categories so that I could find the total overheads. I firstly did this at the start of the year, which is on estimated basis. So at the start of the year, I did this. I found these figures on estimated basis, which I'm going to use below for the costing purposes, for the charging purposes, how that we are going to study here onwards. But after doing this on estimated basis at the start of the year, which will be done now at the time of budgeting, once the year starts, once April comes, I start new set of books. I will now prepare this overheads register, which is on actual basis. So my actual entries, right now, all this was budget. This is what I've shown is budget. Now, once the financial year starts, I prepare all the books. I prepare this overheads register where I will record all these expenses on actual basis as and when they are getting incurred every week, every month. And now from here, from this overheads register, every month I will start getting the actual cost. And this actual cost which I'm getting of these three overheads, production, administration, selling and distribution, I will start posting it here in these accounts on the debit side because these are my expenses incurred. And you all know the expenses which are incurred are debited to the respective expense account. So understand this. At the time of budgeting, I did this same thing to find out estimated production overheads, estimated administration, estimated selling distribution. That was done. Budgeting is done. I get those estimated figures. I use it for costing how that we are going to study henceforth. For accounting purposes, now I prepare these books once the financial year starts and I start recording these actual expenses. And these actual expenses, once I start recording here in this overheads register, every month I'll get these figures of actual production overheads incurred, actual administration incurred. That I will start posting in these ledger accounts. I hope this is clear to all. Rajveer is saying we will take estimations from last year. See, Rajveer, last year is my actual cost. Obviously, any budget, like today when we are going to prepare budgets, it is based on last year's figures because they give you some idea. But you do not take the last year's figures as it is because they are the figures pertaining to last year. I use the last year's figures as my base or as the starting point. Then I do projections of this year, and wherever I feel the figures will change as per my projections, I adjust them to find out the estimated figure of the current. And that is the estimated figure which I'll be using because I have to do costing for the year which is going to start from 1st April. Rowan is saying, sir, basis of apportionment is different from base while determining charging price. No, but a base and basis are same. It is the English language usage. So base is the denominator that is you are using in the formula. And when we are using it as a sentence, what is the basis of charging? Over there, I cannot say what is the base of charging. It may not sound correct. So on basis means the same. It is the language how you are using. Like we say, now there is noun form, there is verb form. So one of them is noun form, one of them is verb form. Yukta is saying, so sir, we can say that cost ledgers are prepared on basis of both. No, beta. Ledgers are always prepared on the basis of actual only. Here, I did not say that this figures will be estimate. Here, I have taken the figures actual only. So the ledgers, see, because ledger is your accounting. In accounting, you pass entry only which is actual. So what actually you are paying to Yukta, that is what is getting posted here. Estimated figures I got from the budgets. See, budgets will be prepared in the same format. Like for budgeted overheads, I'll take the same format which I'm having of overheads register. So this same format for the whole year right now, I'm preparing the budget. See, firstly, for this whole year, I have estimated all the expenses which I'm going to use for my accounting purposes, because for accounting purposes, for all planning purposes, we are preparing budgets. The same expenses I will take, I'll prepare this overheads register in, let us say, a table, simple table, what we can prepare, or rather we are going to study now onwards. That table will be taking the entire year's estimated figures to find out this estimated overheads, which I'll be now using for my costing and charging. But after this budgets are prepared, this sheet is kept in the budget file. Now, when the year starts, I will actually start writing my books where I will take all these expenses in my overheads, register these expenses on actual basis. And from there, every month, I'll start posting this entries. Fine, beta? Gurmeet, sir, can we use different base from that which we use in previous year? Definitely. See, understand one thing, Gurmeet. Costing is always a evolving subject. Once you do costing for a year, and once that year is ended, you will get the actual figures also. You'll again do costing with the actual figures. So right now, I'm doing two things. One is I'm preparing budget for the next year. At the same time, right now, once I've got the actual figures, I am again doing costing for the last year. Why? Last year's costing was done at the start of the last year in previous March on estimated basis. But I want to test whether those estimates which I calculated were right, whether they have given me right figures. And while testing that, I'll check all this, whether my charging price was correct, whether the base which I used was correct. Now, while testing that, if I find that no, last year's base I used labor hours is giving me wrong figures, I should have used machine hours. So when I'm preparing this year's budget and now I'll be charging the overheads this year, I may take the base as machine hours. So, better that is you keep on evolving and you keep on correcting your previous methods wherever you feel they are going wrong. Rohan, sir, you mean that the basis of apportionment need to be taken as estimate? Please remember, Rohan, whatever we are going to study about costing, like finding out the charging price, all that will be using taking the estimated figures only. That right now, when after this, I will be starting to explain you the costing part. Right now, I was explaining you how accounting happens. Now we are going to go to the costing part. I will be taking all these values as estimated. Anubhav, why do we prepare this books twice? Like once for estimation, again for actual. See, Anubhav, my purpose of costing is always by taking the estimated figures, because I have to always determine my costing in advance. Like when you come to me for any particular work, like you come to my office, you want to give me some audit assignment, you want to give me some tax assignment, the first thing that you'll ask is, sir, what is your price? So I need to find out my price in advance. I need to find out my costing in advance. So I'm doing it in advance. Actuals, I'm doing it just for comparison purpose. Yes, obviously one is control purposes, so that I can ensure that my costs are within the range which I had planned. Plus, I'm doing this so that I'm testing, checking that whatever estimates I was using, whether it is going correct. Otherwise, like Yukta had asked, Yukta or who had Gurmeet had asked, that if I found that last year's estimates or the base which I used last year is not giving me correct figure, I will change the base. So this year, when I'm going to again find out my overhead charging rate, maybe I'll use machine hours as the base, because last year I used labor hours, which after taking the figures, actual figures, I found that no, the base is giving me wrong figures. So I'm changing the base. So you're right. One, it will be used for the control purposes. Second, it will be helping me in evolving my costing, changing and correcting my costing if it is going wrong. So do we have to disclose every time we change base. See, remember one thing, Bunnypreet, accounting, when it is financial, you have to give all disclosures because that is a requirement of accounting standards, that you have to give all disclosures over there. If you are changing any accounting base, you have to give disclosure. This is costing. Costing is an internal topic. Costing is disclosed nowhere. So you don't disclose it in your books of accounts or in your financial reports. Yes, internally you record everything and you will disclose it internally only to those people like maybe your CFO, CEO, MD, who are concerned with that and who are having the rights to know your costing details. So Bunnypreet, we don't disclose it to anybody else because it is a sensitive and a very secret information. Cost is the most important information for any business. Then we don't worry. In questions, whatever figures they are giving, you have to take those figures only. Tanvi is asking a very important question. Sir, in exam question, what? Whether estimated figure or actual. Don't worry. Whatever figures they are giving, whether estimate or actual, we have to take them. So in short, they are giving you estimated figures only because in exam, when they are asking you to do costing, it is estimated figures only. So don't worry. Whatever figures they are giving, it is the figures you have to take. Yes. If they are saying this is last year's actual, this is next year's estimate, then read question carefully what they are asking for. Whether they are asking you to find out last year's charging rate or they are asking you next year's charging rate or they are asking you both. So accordingly, you will take the values. So in exams, generally, when the sum is straightforward or 90% of the sums, they only want the next year's rate because they are asking you to do costing at the start of the year. So it is all estimates of next year. But in one of the questions, like I gave you example, they are purposefully giving you past year data, which is actual, next year data, which is estimate. Then you have to see what they are asking for, which year's data they are asking for. Accordingly, you take the figures and calculate. Anup Kumar, sir, where one entry is recorded on debit side of production overheads control account and credit side of which, I'll tell you, beta. I'll tell you which is the corresponding entry on the credit side. I've not yet completed. That entry on the credit side, I'll explain once I explain charging. Anup. Don't worry, you have a very good question. But for that, you'll have to wait. So how we control overhead. That also I'm coming. How you control will come into that. I'm first giving the starting. So here, this is how the overhead starts. This is how overheads accounting and recording is done. Once you've understood this, now see you are getting very good valid questions, all of y'all. How it will be controlled, what figures we are taking, where estimate, where actual. Then Anupas sir, what is the credit entry of these accounts? All of this is now what is coming next. And I'm happy that the way the question that you've asked, it is showing that you all are attentive and you are actually getting the feel of the subject. Fine. But before that, let us take a 5 minutes break. So it is also a mental break plus a physical break. So that then we can start with the next part, which is the costing part of overheads. And there you'll get answer to many of these things. Fine. Okay. So just let us have a quick break. It is now 8:24. We meet at 8:30. K. So students, now if you have understood up to this point, let me take you ahead. So I come back to the estimated one. So right now we are preparing budgets. We all know budgets are based estimated figures. I take those estimated figures. I prepare this budgeted format as one of my sheets, which is for overheads. In that budgeted overhead sheet, I find out the budgeted overheads of these three categories. Now, what is my main purpose of preparing this budget is finding out the charging rate. Again, I just go back to cost sheet to give you the feel, just as a small revision, because I want you all to have the feel of the subject. So I want you all to keep a link of what we are studying, where and how it is useful. So I'm just doing this again as a repetition. So I repeat, you require two things for charging. Till now, I was writing quantity and price. Now I'm using the technical terms. For charging any cost, all the broad six elements of cost, you require two things. One is the quantity, one is the price. Quantity is now the base, which will be different for every element of cost. For material, the quantity that is the base would be the material quantities like kgs of material, liters of material. And then we find out the material charging price, material charging rate using the mother formula. Same thing I'll do over here. The base for labor is the labor hours. Again, in the labor chapter, using the same other formula, we found out the charging price. Same thing for direct expense, you get the prime cost. Now I'm coming to overheads, which is the most critical, most challenging task, why we discuss at the start. Now, when I want to charge these overheads, again, I require two things, base and the charging price. This base, as I said, you do not have any base of overheads. So you select one of these items, select. Either you will take this total cost as the base, or you will take the base of material as the base here. You will take the labor hours or machine hours as the base here. You can select any of these things. You can take the total labor cost itself as the base, or you can take the labor hour machine hour as the base. Now, this base is to be selected firstly when you are calculating this charging rate or charging price. This is the charging price. Now, when you are calculating this charging price, which is done at the start of the year on estimated basis, at that time itself, we select the base. Now, this charging price or charging rate for overheads is technically called as overheads recovery rate, which in short we will be calling as ORR. This is also called as overheads charging rate, as the name we normally use, or it is also called as overheads absorption rate. So these are the three parallel words which are used for the charging rate of overheads. Out of this, we commonly use this overhead recovery rate, in short ORR. So this rate we are going to calculate now for each overheads, and that is the rate which we'll be using in cost sheet for charging. Students, I hope you are getting this. You are getting the feel, you are able to connect. Fine. Now, how do we find out this charging rate? Same other formula. In the numerator, you will have total estimated overheads. Now here there is no normal loss, so there is no question of scrap value. So nothing we deduct over here because there is no scrap value for overhead. See, scrap value mainly you have only for material. There is no scrap value for labor. There is no scrap value for overheads because these are pure expense. There can be no scrap value. In the denominator, total estimated base. Why we are using this word base? Because we don't know what it will be. That is what we will select. We know what can be taken as the base. You can take any of these things as the base. You can take one of these costs, or you can take their base as your base. This is what we are going to now decide. Now, we bifurcated our overheads into three categories: production overheads, administration or selling overheads, for this same purpose, that I could find or I could calculate proper basis for each. Now, first is my production overheads. I will discuss about this later on because this is what is the next major part of this syllabus. Then I have my administration overheads, and then I have my selling and distribution overheads. So I have to find out three overhead charging rates or overhead recovery rates. Now, total estimated administration overheads. Where I will get this from? I'll get it from here. So this is the amount from the budget which I will get. Now, what is the base that I will take? I have two options. One I can take is total estimated production units. That again I'll get from my budget. How much would be my total estimated production units? Or now see, if I take this as the base, let us assume some figures. 20 lakhs is my budgeted overheads, which I'm getting from here. And my production units, again, which I'm getting from my budgets, is this. So roughly I'll get how much will be my administration overheads. It will be rupees 25 per unit of output produced. So whatever output I'm going to produce, per unit of that, roughly on an average, I will be spending 25 rupees towards the administration. However, I can have another base. So there are two possible things. I can use this as the formula. Total estimated administration overheads upon total estimated factory cost. Now, both these are expenses. So I calculate this as a percentage. Now you will say, sir, okay, I'm already having a question. Let me take your question. Rajkumar, beta, be specific what you want me to explain again. Now, the question that I was expecting was that you all know from where I get this estimated overheads. I get it from the overheads register, which is from budget. Where I'll get this is also I'll get from my budget because I have my estimated production units. Because in budget, we are budgeting everything for the next year. Please visualize this. For next year, the budget's preparation is going on right now in every company. Now, where will I get this? Because this is the estimated administration overheads I've got from my budgeted overheads register. Where will I get this? So the answer is, as we are preparing budgets for everything, we also prepare budgeted cost sheet. So we have total budgeted prime cost. Now, recall roughly the cost sheet. You charge your production overheads. All these are budgeted figures. What you get is, you get your total budgeted factory cost. You agree to this? Because this is what is the cost sheet format. Now, you prepare all budgets, including the budgeted cost sheet, from which I'm just showing this. We get total budgeted cost of production. So you can prepare budgeted cost sheet till the end, that is till the total cost. Now, either I will take the budgeted production units, or from this cost sheet, I'll take the budgeted factory cost. Now let us say these budgeted figures are, again I'm assuming, so 25 lakhs is my budgeted overheads. So the same assumption continues that administration overhead is budgeted 25 lakhs. Where I've got this from? I've got this from here, from my overheads register, which is prepared on budgeted basis. And from this budgeted cost sheet, which I'm preparing as a part of my budget, here I've got, let us say, 1 crore rupees as my budgeted factory overheads. Students, I hope you all are understanding that in budgets, I'll be preparing budgets of everything. So I can also prepare budgeted cost sheet. So this budgeted cost sheet, which I've prepared, is giving me these values. So what I have got another charging rate for administration overheads, which is coming as 25% off factory cost. So I have option. See, I'm giving you both possible options. Either if I want, I can calculate it per unit, or if I want, I can calculate it percentage. I'll just change this because somebody should not get confused. Let us say this is 2 crores that I'm quoting. Rupees. So see, students, at the start of the year, I am preparing the budgets for everything in my business. From those budgets only, firstly, I got these expenses for my business. This P&L, etc. I use those expenses here to prepare my budgeted overheads register, from where I got the total budgeted overheads, all three categories. And these budgeted overhead figures I'm using for calculating the charging rate. Obviously, the first is production overhead, but I'll explain that later. I'm coming to the second overheads, which is administration overheads. So I've taken these administrated overheads figure here. Now I have two options. Either I can take the production units as the base, or I can take factory cost as the base. Now this is where I have to select, which somebody said that on the basis of my judgment, I will select which I feel is more appropriate. Let us say last year I had selected production units. Now, if you remember in my discussion, I was also explaining this year, I will also prepare the actuals pertaining to the last year, because that year is now coming to close. I know the actuals. Taking those actuals, I will prepare a cost sheet. This cost sheet is for the last year on actual basis. Same, I had a budgeted cost sheet prepared last year at the start of the last year. I'll compare both these things to find whether what I budgeted and what I'm getting actual, both these pertain to the last year, are significantly matching. There is no major difference. There is no conceptual error. If I find any error in this period's budgeting and in this period's costing, I'll rectify it. So for example, last year I had taken production units as my base for administration overhead. So this I had taken as the base. But when I prepared the actuals for the last year, I found that this base gave me wrong answers in costing. So this year I changed the base and I can switch to this. So see, you have optional bases. Every time you have to decide which base you will select. You will select that base, you'll use that base. Again, at the end of the year, you'll compare to find out whether whatever you did was giving you reasonably correct and appropriate answer. If the answers are correct, you continue that. If you feel, no, I'm not getting correct answers, you change. So the two most appropriate bases which are suggested, which are used, either you use the production units as the base. In that case, your ORR. Now I'm using the word ORR, which means overhead recovery rate, which is the word used for charging rate of overheads. If you use units, production units as the base, your charging rate will be like this, rupees 25 per unit. Second option suggested is use your factory overheads as the base. If that you are doing, since both numerator and denominator are in rupees, we express it as a percentage. So then the answer that you get is something like this, that your administration overheads is some percentage of your factory cost. So now when you'll be preparing cost sheet, as you can see in the sequence of cost sheet, we find out prime cost, we add factory overheads, you get factory cost. So after factory cost, you have to charge administration overheads. So we express the administration overheads as some percentage of factory cost. So now whenever you will be preparing your cost sheet, once you reach factory cost, you can multiply factory cost by 12.5%, you'll get your administration overheads. Students, are you getting the feel of the subject? See, these workings, whatever I'm explaining you, calculation wise, they are very simple. You have to simply divide, you get the charging rate. But how the charging rate is used, what is the impact? This is what I'm trying to explain. Anybody having any questions till this point? Please respond. I've got 1 or 2 responses. Let me know how others are getting the feel. You are understanding, not understanding. It is clear, it is not clear. Great. Super. Super. So let us proceed once we are clear up to this point. Now, similarly, we have to find out the charging rate for selling and distribution overheads. Again, as you can see, this is the budget. From there, I've got estimated selling and distribution overheads figure. I take it here. Now I have to select a base. Again, the first optional base is total estimated sale units. Or second option is numerator, we get this estimated overheads from our budget, and denominator, I can take total estimated sales value as the base. Again, since both are in rupees, we express it as a percentage. Now, let us say my budget shows that this is going to be rupees 50 lakhs. Units sold, or let us say, okay, I'm taking this as 60 lakhs. Units sold are, let us say, going to be 1,20,000 units. So I get rupees 5 per unit sold. Sorry, not 5, I think it is 50. I get rupees 50 per unit sold as my overhead charging rate, overhead recovery rate for selling and distribution overheads. Second possibility is I'm taking sales value as the basis. So numerator 60 lakhs, denominator, let us say the sales value is, for example, it is 6 crores, for example. So what I'm getting is 10% of sales. So again, same like administration overheads, even for selling and distribution overheads, you have optional basis. The two most common bases which are suggested is either you take the estimated sale units or you take the estimated sales value. Now here you'll understand why we should segregate the overheads into production, administration, selling, because different overheads behave differently. As you can see, administration and selling are behaving differently. One is the function for controlling, managing the business, running the business, which is administration. One is for promoting the business, promoting the sales. For both, the basis cannot be same. If you want better charging, if you want better control, you have to segregate them. And that is why once we got the total indirect cost, which we call as overheads, we further bifurcated it into production, administration, selling. Is this clear, students? So this is how you calculate the charging rates for different overheads. And once these charging rates are calculated, when you will do the costing, when you will be preparing the cost sheet, these rates are ready at the start of the year. You will just simply multiply and charge these overheads in the respective cost sheet. This is fine. Now, coming to production overheads. For production overheads, why I said we'll discuss it separately, because in production overheads charging, obviously the formula remains same. Other formula is in numerator you have total estimated production overheads. In denominator, you will take total estimated base, whatever it is, and you will find out the ORR, right? But why I took this separately? Because for production overheads, there are two approaches. See, one is we have multiple bases. For administration, they suggested two bases. For selling, they suggested two bases. Similarly, here you'll have bases. But before we come to bases, there are two approaches. One is called as the single or the blanket rate. First approach. The other approach is called as the departmental rate. What is single or blanket rate? Like how you did for administration. You took the entire administration overheads, selected one base, find out one rate. So you will have only one charging rate for administration. You will have one charging rate for selling. Similarly, you will have one charging rate for production overheads, covering all the production overheads in that rate. That will be called as the single or blanket rate. So for administration and selling, we are already using this single or blanket rate only. For production also, you can do the same thing. So in numerator, what I will do, I'll take total estimated production overheads. Again, where I'll get this from? I'll get this from my budgeted overheads summary, which I prepared. And dividing by first base could be total estimated labor or machine hours, which you are using for production. So let us say figure wise, estimated production overheads is rupees 1 crore. And let us say my work is mechanized. So I have machine hours of production. My estimated machine hours for the whole year is 5 lakhs. So if this is the example that I have 5 lakhs estimated or budgeted machine hours, which I'm expecting to work in the coming year, and the overheads are 100 crores, not 100 crores, sorry, 1 crore, that is 100 lakhs. What I will do, I will divide this, I'll get my production overheads charging rate, which will be rupees 20 per other possibility. Total estimated production overheads upon total estimated direct wages. Again, numerator rupees 1 crore. And denominator, this estimated direct wages, as I said, I will also be preparing a budgeted cost sheet in which I have my direct material, direct wages, direct expenses, which are all budgeted figure. I'll take this direct wages, budgeted direct wages figure from my cost sheet as the base here. Let us say it is rupees 2 crores. So since both are in rupees, that is both are cost, I'll express it as a percentage. 50% of direct wages. So this is my other option. Out of this, I can select any one of the option which, as per my judgment, I feel is more appropriate. Correct? Now, the first approach is like for administration and selling, you find out one rate only for the entire production overheads. If you do that, it is called a single or blanket rate. But generally, for production overheads. They say that if you want better charging, in-depth charging, precise charging, you don't do single rate for production overheads. And that is where we have the second approach, which is the departmental rate. Now, what is single rate and departmental rate difference? The formula remains same. There is no change in the formula. This is the mother formula for all costing. So it is also for all overheads. And even if you're doing by single or blanket rate approach or by departmental rate approach, the formula is same. Now, what is the point? The point is, please understand this. The point is that this departmental rate means what? Once you understand this, you will get the difference between the single rate and the departmental rate. Now, I am doing production of this product. This product, or let us say like this, I have hundreds of products for which I am doing production. This is one of the product, you can say, range item, or one of the product. I have similar 100 different types of pens of different shape, quantity, quality, whatever. Now, when I produce these pens, my pens are produced in 3 different production areas, because different pens require different types of processing. So my entire production work, let us say my factory, is having 3 major production segments. So my factory can be divided into 3 major production departments. Department A, Department B, Department C. What is Department A doing? Department A is doing molding. What is Department B doing? Department B is doing fabricating. What is Department C doing? Department C is doing some type of. Now see, these are very basic words I'm using. It may be technical for you, but in fact, in real factory, these are more technical languages which I'm not using. Like they may be saying buffing, they may be saying coating. I'm not getting into those technical words. I'm using a simple word to explain. Well, let us see, even if this is getting difficult. Why? Because we do not know what is a factory in reality. Frankly, at least I did not know till the time I joined articleship and I actually went to factory for doing the work. So see, many things you'll get to know once you join articleship, and that is why articleship is the most crucial stage of your career. People consider articleship only as one of the stages for completing the CA course. Sorry, articleship, I'll tell you, is the most important phase of your career, not of your exams or becoming a C. Because what you study in your books is only 20%. 80% of every subject is real life practice, for which you'll get the feel when you're in articleship, because over there you will be sent to different clients' real workplace for doing their auditing, for doing their costing. Then for taxation also, you'll get the real figures of their businesses, the real P&L, the real worksheets. Same thing for FM. So this is very important phase of your life, of your entire career as a professional. So please see to it that articleship, you will be doing it thoroughly well. Many times I've seen people saying that, okay, let me now focus more on my finals, on completing all the papers and exams. Later on, I'll see. Later, there is no later. I always tell students, focus more on articleship first. Exams, anyways, now in the new pattern, 2 years. After that, you'll get a break of like how you are having these 6, 9, 8 months gap between your foundation and inter. You'll have the same gap between inter and final, and that, let me tell you, is more than sufficient to pass your finals. But the 2 years of articleship, and then if you take up the third optional year, is going to be the life-changing aspect and the career-defining aspect. Now, since maybe we may not understand what is molding, fabricating, right now at least, you may get to know all this when you're in articleship. Let me change this with a simple another example of a workshop. Let us say I am a garage. Now you all have taken your vehicles to a garage. In garage, when somebody comes, I perform three major actions on their vehicle. One is the cleaning. So I have one cleaning department. Just visualize in a workshop, there is one place where all cleaning is done. So that is the cleaning department. I know workshop and all is not production, but just to give you the feel, the experience, I'm taking example of a workshop where for the workshop, these are their production or the working part. So one is the cleaning of the vehicle. One is that section where your vehicle is getting repaired. So in your workshop, you'll find one area where there are those different machines which are used, where different workers are sitting, actually doing the repairing of your vehicle. And the third part is where some polishing work is done, some painting work is done. Again, this is a different section. Now, these are the three broad departments or three broad functions within my production area, which I'm doing. Please visualize a workshop. That is the simplest example, at least at this stage, to understand what we are going to study. Now, besides this, in the workshop, I have few sections, few departments, which are actually not going to repair your vehicle, but they are going to provide some support to the main departments who are going to do your repairing. What are these departments? One is I have a stores where all these persons, these departments, materials are stored. So repairing department will require so many things, nut, bolts, oil, grease, different parts. I keep it in the stores. The cleaning person also require different types of cleaning related items. I keep it in the stores. Same thing is with the polishing or painting department, all types of polishes, varnishes, paints, etc., etc. The lambi, etc. Everything that they need is kept in stores. So these main departments which are doing the production work require some support from some support departments, which we call as the service departments. One of them is stores. You understand? Similarly, there may be another department which is the repairs and maintenance department. Now you will say, sir, we have already come in a workshop which is going to repair the vehicle. What is this repairs department? This repairs department is doing repairs of the machines used here. So all these production departments are using machines for their work. Their machines also require regular maintenance. So I have one maintenance department. So see, this is a real life example to give you the real feel. Now, one option that I have is that for my entire production overheads, which I'm getting from my budget, I use one single base, find one single rate, like how I did entire overheads, one base, one rate. In that case, it is called a single. Second option is I find out three different rates. That is, for each work, I find out different rate. So let us say for the cleaning department, I will get the rate as rupees 10 per vehicle. Because cleaning is done for every vehicle. More or less, if it is a workshop of two-wheeler, or vehicles will require same type of cleaning effort. So let us say here, I will get a cost 250 rupees per vehicle. Repairing, I will get rupees 120 per hour. This is the charging rate. How I'll explain later after this, but I'm trying to give you the difference between single and blanket rate. And for polishing, I get rupees 25 per square feet. Now, as you can see, instead of getting one single rate for the whole work, whole department, if I get separate rates for each activity that I'm doing, I'm sure you'll be able to understand and appreciate it will be more better and it will give me better results. Why? Because there is a possibility that the vehicle which you have got me, you only want repairing done. You don't want these two things done. Or you want repairing plus cleaning done. Or you want repairing plus painting done. Also, for everyone, the repairing is not same. That is why I have calculated the rate per hour. Whose vehicle is more damaged or has more complications will require more time. So I have to charge more cost. Here also, whose entire vehicle has to be painted, there would be different cost. Whose only mudguards would be painted or only the petrol tank has to be painted will require different cost. So here I have calculated per square feet. So as you can see, for different production work, if I calculate different rates, which are obviously having different basis, it will further enhance, further improve, further precise my costing. And this is where Instead of single, we prefer the departmental rate approach, whereby I'll do the same thing. I'll take the same overheads, I'll find out the base, I'll find out rate like this only, but now that will be done in three parts. For each production function separately, for each production department separately. That is why, since here I will not get one rate, I will get multiple rates for each department, I'll get a separate rate with a separate base. That is why this is called as departmental rate, which is considered as more better approach for charging production overheads. So now what we are going to discuss is how this departmental rate work is done. So understand this, we are preparing production overheads summary. So this working we can call it as production overhead summary. In detail, it is called something else. I'll come to that detailed name in a while. So basically now what I'm doing is, please pay attention students, I want to create a whole linkage. So at the start, what I did was, I took the expenses from my P&L. I found out the estimated expenses of the coming year. Those expenses I took here in my budgeted overheads register. I divided it between production, administration, selling. For administration and selling, there is only one approach, that is single rate. I already did. For production, that is for all these expenses which I have identified for my production overheads, I can find out a single rate here, one rate by taking the total production overheads. But I don't want to do this. I want to go for departmental rate. So now what I'm doing is, I'm taking these production overhead figures which I've estimated here in my budget from this particular budgeted overheads register. I'll take all these figures here below. So where I'm taking all these figures, I'm taking all these figures here. So now I'm writing some names of the columns. Particulars, expenses, amount rupees, basis of apportionment. You'll find these headings very similar to the above budgeted overheads register heading because the format is same. The only thing is you have to understand, now we are doing it exclusively for the production overheads part. Now, I'm simply copy pasting this, the production overheads part here. So I'm drawing the line. I'm simply copy pasting this, the list of the expenses here. So what I've done, from the total expense of the business, I prepared the overhead summary above, where I bifurcated production, administration, selling. Now from that same above summary, I'm taking only the production overheads data here in this production overhead summary, which I'm now doing only for production overheads. Above summary was for entire overheads. Now this summary is only for production overheads. Now what I'm doing here, I'm copy pasting all expenses from above. So I have direct materials, I have direct labor or wages, I have indirect material, I have indirect labor or wages, then I have salary, I have depreciation of plant, depreciation of factory building. Similarly, I have repairs and maintenance, same of plant, of factory building. Then I have other all expenses which are pertaining to my factory. Now, these expenses I'm getting from above, from the overhead summary, which I calculated above in my budget. But here the figures I'm taking is only, as you can see this arrow coming, this arrow is coming only from the production overheads column. So I have taken only the production overheads figure because now this summary is exclusively for production overheads. Now what I do is, in this summary of production overheads, I will be dividing this amount. This is the production overheads amount for all these expenses. I will be dividing it between these 5 departments. So that by the end of this process, I will get I have production overheads figure. Now I will get production overheads of department A, production overheads of department B, production overheads of department C, department X, department Y. What I will do is, I will take all these expenses and now I'll start dividing it between all the departments of the production area. So these are all my departments in the production area. So we are only now doing production overhead summary. Now, all these expenses, when I divide between all these departments, now which are my only production area departments, this process of dividing my expense between all my departments are one, few departments are doing actual production work, others are supporting them. So broadly, the entire production work is divided into production departments and service departments. So all expenses, when I'm dividing between them, this stage is called as primary distribution of production overheads. Now, at the end of this stage, what will happen? I will get the cost of each department, the overheads of each department. So let me call it as total estimated overhead, but now it is department wise. Now what I will do, I will now charge these service department overheads to the production departments. Why? Because these service departments are not giving you any service. Who are you? You are my customer. You have brought your vehicle here. They are giving service internally to my other department. So since they are giving service internally to my other department, let me charge their cost internally. So to whoever they are giving service, I will charge their cost. So in this next step, I will charge these department costs to the departments to whom they are giving service. At the end of this step, what will happen? Since I've charged these costs, they will become nil. And now I'll get the final cost, the final overheads of department A, B, C. Total estimated production overheads of A, B, C. This step in which I divide the service department overheads to the production department is called as redistribution. Why re? Because already once we have done the distribution, or since the above step was called as primary, this is called as secondary distribution of production overheads. Now, at the end of this stage, service department overheads are over because they have been distributed here. Now I will select a base. Now, depending upon what work that production department is doing, like this is doing cleaning. So I will take number of vehicles which will get cleaned in that department in that year. Here, this is doing repairing. So I will take the estimated labor hours or machine hours which are required for repairing. So labor hours. And this is doing the painting work. So I'll take the figure of square feet. That is the area which will be painted. Now, here is the rupees, the cost. Here is the base. When I'll divide this, I will get the ORR. Here the ORR is per vehicle cleaned. Here the ORR is per hour of repairing. Here the ORR is per square feet of painting. And this is what I gave you here itself at the start, just to give you the feel of difference. So I got 250 per vehicle for cleaning, 120 per hour for repairing, and 25 per square feet for painting. So instead of getting one rate for entire overheads like here, like entire production overheads, instead of taking one rate, the same thing I'm getting for each department separately. That is why this is called as departmental rate. Students, have you understood this? Because once you understand this, after this, what we are going to do is pure calculator work. No special effort required in understanding it. It will be pure calculator using. Yes, Rohan, what you have asked me as a query some time ago, what you have said is correct.
Sir, I had one more doubt.
Please tell me.
Sir, in the first step, we are dividing the total overheads into production, administration, and selling and distribution. So
Yes, that is the
उसको
very first
हमको
step where we divide all expenses
सर
and we
तो
get
उसको
the three
हमको
different overheads. Tell me.
सर तो उसको हमको प्राइमरी डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन बोलना चाहिए था ना?
उसको हम कुछ नहीं बोलते बेटा, क्योंकि प्राइमरी हम नीचे जब उसे डिपार्टमेंट, जब आप डिपार्टमेंट में डिवाइड कर रहे हो ना, तब प्राइमरी और सेकेंडरी ये वर्ड यूज कर रहा है मॉड्यूल. आप इसको प्राइमरी का भी प्री प्राइमरी बोल दो ना आप.
ओके सर.
Call it as pre primary if you want to give this a name. See, let me
ओके
tell
सर.
you, all these things are not explained in detail in our modules or in any book. But in order that you understand this, and tomorrow, if you're really doing costing in your articleship, or tomorrow, if you're actually taking up costing assignments as a professional, you should understand how this is done. So I'm giving you all these details. And also, this helps in understanding the conceptual part and the working part. Otherwise, your actual exam sum starts from here. This is what your exam sum will start with. You will not get to know where we are getting these figures from. So I gave that thing. So since our exams and all working start from here, so here they have called it as primary. So you call it as pre-primary if you want to give it a name. Fine.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Bhumika, what is confusing, beta? Yukta, I'll explain how we do distribution, redistribution. Mahalakshmi, sir, in secondary distribution, overhead charge to production of service on. I'll explain the ratio. Bhumika, don't worry. See, I can understand. Lot of conceptual part is heavy, but beta, that is required, na? And just keep this in mind. As we proceed, when we start doing this with practical figures, you'll find it very easy. But to understand what you are doing and why you are doing, all this explanation was required. Let us say tomorrow, if somebody found this a bit fast or a bit too much, you always have the recording. Once we have done with the practical part, go back and see the recordings. You'll realize the gravity of whatever I explained. And let me tell you, you study and understand this immediately. If in your office, wherever you are joining articleship after your completion of C Inter, even if you're given a costing assignment, I'll tell you, you will have a much better edge in doing that costing assignment. So don't worry. If you find this heavy, revisit it afterwards. No problem. I never expect. In fact, this also happened to me. Whenever I used to study any concept for the first time, it never happened that it clicked to me immediately. Things take time, and that is okay. That is how the concepts are. In fact, they are difficult. I agree. Yes, Vishnu.
Sir, can you please explain this whole picture in a one go in a short way so we can and I can understand this whole picture. So it is very easy because we have understand it is in a parts.
But
Sir,
I see
please.
it has to be understood in part. But if you remember, I explained this again. Just in 2 minutes, I'll repeat. I already explained this beta. But still, for your request, I'll honor your request. I'll explain this again. So we start from our P&L. From there, we get all expenses here. From this expenses, we bifurcate it into production, administration, selling. Administration and selling, we take these total overheads and start calculating their ORR because there is only one approach, single rate. The production overhead that we get from here, we have two approaches. Either do it by single rate, that is calculate one charging rate, or more better suggested approach is do departmental rate. So what we do, this production overhead that we got in the above table, we take those overheads amount here, only the production overheads column amount, and then we redistribute it within all the or departments of the production area, like the production department, service department. Once you distribute this, you'll get the total overheads of each department. So now you'll get the overheads department wise. Now, whatever are the overheads which are pertaining to the service department X and Y, redistribute them to ABC. At the end of this step, X and Y overheads will be zero because that you have distributed here. And now you'll get only the overheads of ABC. Then divided by the respective basis to find out the charging rate for department A, department B, department C separately. So something like this, you get the charging rate. For department A, the cleaning charging rate is per vehicle 250. For department B, the repairing charging rate is 120 per hour. For department C, the charging rate is 25 per square feet of work done. Is this clear, beta?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Perfect. Now coming to the working part, most important part. Sir, how to divide this? Which is the working part, which is the practical part? Anubhav, beta, you are asking me from where department X and Y cost is found. It is found from primary distribution. In primary distribution, you made totals. You got total of A, B, C, X, Y. So you got the cost of department X and Y from primary distribution, Anubhav. Here, see, I got the cost of X and Y. Now, while doing this primary distribution, the question is, how do you divide all these costs between the departments? Theoretically, they are saying there are two ways of doing this. One is allocation, one is apportionment. This word I have used earlier also as the heading basis of apportionment. Now, what is this allocation? What is this apportionment? Allocation means in this list of expenses, there could be few expenses which you already know department wise. You have to simply do what? You have to place the figures under each department because you are already given the bifurcation in the question itself that this much is of this department, this much is of this department, this much is of this department. So where already bifurcation is given because those expenses are incurred department wise, you have to simply give the expense to that department. This is what is allocation, giving to respective department. So you already know the breakup. You already know the separate amounts. Let me take you to one small practical example so that you get this. So let us say like in this exam sum, you are already given these four costs department wise. So you are already knowing the department wise figure of these costs. What you have to simply do, you have to take up the figure of each department and write it in that department here. So you have done what? Simply either se utha ke idhar likh diya. So you have given the amount to the respective department from the sum. This step where you have simply taken and put the figures there is called as allocation. What is apportionment? Apportionment is applicable to those costs which are common. So let us say light bill is common because you have one single meter. Rent is common because for the whole factory, you have one owner, he has charged you the lump sum rent for the whole factory. So for common cost, we have to divide the common expense between the departments. Like again here, these expenses are given total. Rent total this much, light bill total this much, repairs to plant total this much, power expenses this much. You are given the totals. You don't have the breakup. So these totals, which are common expense for the whole factory or for the whole production, we have to divide. So to apportion means to divide. Now, when you have to divide, you require some ratio. What is this ratio? That is what is called as this basis of apportionment. In simple words, you write the ratio. So for distributing the overheads, which is called as primary distribution, you follow two steps, allocation, apportionment. So in the sum, those expenses which are already given department wise, you put it in the respective department columns, that is allocation. For those expenses which are given common, you have to use some ratio to distribute, to divide. That is called as apportionment. Let's discuss that, Vishal. I'm coming to that. Now we understand that practically how this allocation apportionment is happening. Now see, this is the list of expenses. As you can see, amounts are given in the sum. Now you have to either allocate or apportion. Please pay attention. My first two expenses are, I'm just expanding the screen for better visibility. My first two expenses are direct material, direct labor. These are already given individually for each department. Now coming to something interesting. I will not write these expenses in these three columns. I will write these expenses only in these two columns. Why? See, what are these expenses? These are direct expenses. I want to, in this table, do distribution of overheads. Overheads means indirect. But obviously, from your P&L, from your budgets, you'll get all types of expense. You'll get direct also, indirect also. But this particular working, what we are understanding and what we'll be doing now is only for overheads. Now, if this working is only for overheads, what I will be doing is, or what I'm supposed to do is, I'm only supposed to charge or distribute overheads, but I'm given some direct cost also. Now, the question is, what will I do of this direct cost? I will not distribute it here. That is why I've put cross. So even though it is given in the sum, we will not distribute because these are direct. And we are doing summary of overheads. But then why I am taking it here, please understand. See, what is direct material, direct labor, which is used in the production directly. Now, these are the production departments where you are doing actual production. Now, whatever direct material, direct labor you are using here in the production departments are the ones which are going in the product directly. But whatever direct material you are using for giving a service, that material is indirect for the final product. Like for repairing and maintaining the machines. In the machine, I'm putting the grease. I'm doing some cleaning of the machine. I may be using some oil, some grease. But this cleaning I'm doing of a machine. Your final output is the product that is being manufactured and delivered to you. For that final output, that product, this oil grease is not direct because it is not used directly for the product. It is used indirectly. So, in short, the direct material, direct labor, which I am using in the service departments for doing the service is indirect or is overheads for the final product. That is why it is considered, because for product, this is overheads. Correct? The other two items which are given are indirect material, indirect labor. They will be taken in all columns because they are indirect. Now, this part is the allocation part because this is given in the question ready-made. You have to simply pick and put it in the respective column. Just one thing that you have to remember, you will not take the direct material and direct labor figures in the production department. You will take them in the service department. Now, after this, for all the common expenses, I have to divide. And for dividing this, I have to use a ratio which is called as basis of apportionment, means the ratio of apportionment. So here, I'll have to find out a ratio. Now, what could be the ratio? That depends upon the data given in the sum. Now, see, what is the data given? So, first you are given cost that you have taken. Now, the data that you are given is square feet, horsepower. This is the power of every machine. The value of plant, the light point, the number of employees, the machine hours every machine is working. Now, these are going to be the ratios for distributing the common expenses. Now, here again, some judgment skill is required. From the name of the expense, we'll decide the ratio. So for rent, the ratio which I'll use is this area. So this is the ratio. So whatever is 30,000 rent, I will divide in all the department using these figures. This becomes my ratio. Similarly, for lighting expenses, I'll use this as the ratio, light points. So this becomes my ratio for dividing this 12,000 in all the departments. Similarly, for repairs to plant, I have to see over here if something of plant is given. Yes, I am given value of plant. So I'll use this as the ratio for repairs of plant. Now, not only for repairs, I have something also of plant, depreciation of plant. I'll use the same ratio. So for repairs and depreciation of plant, I'll use the same ratio. For repairs of building, same ratio of rent I will use. So I'll use area. But had it been depreciation of building, I would have used value because depreciation is more connected with value. Similarly, for canteen expenses, I'll use number of employees. For sundries is what? Miscellaneous. Again, using judgment, we'll be using some ratio. So understand, students, what I'm trying to explain you now is that while doing this primary distribution, some expenses are given ready-made. Department-wise, you have to just pick up and put it in the department. This is allocation. While doing this, you have to only take care of direct material, direct labor. You will not put it in the production department. You will put it only in the service department. For all other expenses which are not given department-wise, which are given common separately, you have to select one of these ratio which is most suitable to that department. This is how you will do the primary distribution. Somebody was asking me, sir, how will I divide the service department cost to the production departments? Don't worry, students. See, I'll just show you. You are given in the sum when you will be doing secondary distribution, how much X is giving service to everyone, they will give you percentage like this. How much Y is giving service to everyone, they will give you percentage like this. So for doing the secondary distribution also, that is service department cost, which you have to allocate to all the departments, again, the ratios are given in the sum like this. Am I clear, students? So this is how we will be doing primary and secondary. Is this fine with all? Fully clear? So today I have explained you everything in the working. Next lecture, I'll upload this sheet there so that you can use this as a reference. We will actually do this, and this is going to be purely calculator. So please be prepared with your calculators in the next lecture so that we can take up these examples. I'll be uploading this sheet. We'll use these. We will use this as our basis for solving the sums. And in this, we will do this primary, secondary distribution, right? So we have to reach up to this point, which will be firstly at primary, you'll get cost of each department. In secondary, X and Y will be nil because that will be distributed. You will have only cost of ABC. And then in the sum itself, you will be given these bases, which you will divide. Once you divide, you will get the overhead charging rate for each of the production departments. Is this clear, students? Any questions or doubts? Yes, students, any questions or doubts? Students, ask me your doubts. What will be the basis for apportionment of sundries? Gurmeet, I have purposefully left something for next lecture. Bhumika, don't worry, beta. I had the same fear, but with practice, you can overcome the fear. Sir, how companies select base in the first year? Very good question. See, beta, in the first year, everything is judgmental. But still, in order that your judgment is near to correct, what you do is you study other companies, you study other businesses. So no new business is started without doing proper research. Especially for doing costing and FM, you definitely need research. So either you connect to those other industries, or even if, see, because they are your competitors, they may not share the data. You have published. Now today, we have so much of published reports. So people, what they do is they use the published reports. Further, if they hire you as professional, the owner does not have to do anything. You already have so much of experience and knowledge that you will be able to do this. So in the first year, on the basis of your knowledge and judgment and the published reports on that sector, you select the most appropriate base. Is this clear, beta? Anubhav, clear. Tanvi, how we apportion cost, beta? How we apportion cost means? I just explained now, you use some ratio, Tanvi. I did not get your question. We will use the ratio for each expense. There will be a separate ratio suitable to that expense. In that ratio, we divide. Anup Kumar, beta, what is the criteria for redistribution? I just told you that in the sum, they will be giving you that X department is providing so much percentage of service to other departments. That percentage becomes the ratio for redistribution. Yes, Rohan. So direct cost of service department will be considered as indirect cost of production department. You're right. Perfect. See, these are all realizations. Once you start understanding, you'll realize and you'll enjoy. Gurmeet, beta weightage for all theory, for all these chapters. See, these are all practical chapters, material, labor, overheads. The weightage is from every chapter you may get one theory question. And then in the exam paper, you have one special question, which is entirely theory. In that, you may get 3-4 marks theory from every chapter. Fine, Gurmeet, beta? Superb. Yes, students, any further questions, doubts relating to whatever we studied today? Whatever I explained you, I know it was a lot of concept. Rajveer, beta, not first year. Your any year judgment may be wrong because judgment is judgment. You just have to simply revise it in the next year and move on. But life is like that. You tell me, once you start doing anything, even now, just on a lighter note, even taking up CA course is a judgment that you will be successful as a CA. But firstly, for that, there is a judgment that you'll also pass. So all these you are taking challenges, better, and on some calculation basis, on some assumption basis, on some judgment basis. Better, entire life is based on judgments and calculations and predictions. They may go wrong, fine, you correct yourself. Yes, better Tanvi, all these things we'll solve. So today's lecture was very important to create the conceptual basis. Next lecture is going to be very simple. You will feel suddenly that overheads, even if you found today very heavy or too lengthy, whatever, next lecture you'll enjoy. When we solve every category of sum, you'll find that, Ari, it is so easy. So all these things, next lecture we are going to solve. Fine. Excellent. So we close today's session, students. Thank you very much. It was really very insightful because of the questions that you are asking. Keep focusing in the same manner in the every lecture of every subject of every faculty so that you start enjoying the subject, and the more you enjoy, study becomes easier. Yes, but I also look out for the next classes. I really desperately wait for my next lectures because I also am having great fun with you all. So let us connect soon in the next lecture for taking up the practicals of this. Fine. Good day.
Sir,
Take care. Keep studying. Yes, Veda.
sir, I had one doubt related to the studies.
Please, Veda, tell me.
Sir, do you used to read all the modules for all the subjects
But
in
my
case
first
of your exam?
first book to read is always module. Okay.
You used to read line by line every page?
Obviously, but see, if you are having no other source, if you are depending on the module as your main source, you should read entire module at least once. Okay. For one of the chapters where, let us say, you are finding it very difficult, you can be exam specific by only reading that portion which is relevant for exams, but that can be for one of the chapters. But see, understand, but one thing, module while reading line by line, I'm not talking only from exam perspective because everything line by line may not be required in exam, but for understanding the subject, which is necessary for answering many questions in exams. So reading line by line means you should read the whole module because then only you'll understand the subject. See, all these subjects you are studying in your life for the first thing. And if you are using module as your base book, you should read everything. Correct, beta?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So you should read at least once. And that much time in life we have.
Okay, sir.
When I was studying, there were 8 papers. When I was studying, we did not have any such LVC classes. There was no support. We did it all by ourselves. At least now you have this backup as our classes. So when along with the classes you study, the study becomes faster and easier because many things what we explain you find in the module. So it is easy to relate it. So now I'm sure if we could do it with 8 subjects without classes, you all can definitely do it. Okay?
Okay,
so
sir.
that's it from my side today. It was great fun interacting with you all. Let us continue this in next lecture with the practical aspect of this chapter. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.